podcast world. This is Caribbean Power Lunch, where we feature Black-owned businesses. I am your host, Kevin Valley, and boy, do we have an episode for you today. Alongside me is your old friend from episode 1, Mr. Osei-Wright Alexis from Incentivize Network. Osei, welcome back, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for coming through. I know, Zara couldn't make it here this evening, so we're lucky that you will come across here. I mean, we have a lot of testosterone in the room this evening, but, but that's okay.
Yeah, man.
But here's why I think today will be a very special episode. Because not only is our guest today one of the only people I know to ever study aerospace engineering. One of two. Not only has he been able to carve out his own little Silicon Valley in the Caribbean, he's bringing Silicon Valley to the Caribbean. Not only because of that, but this guy here is another alumni of St. Mary's College. Big up CIC every time.
All the time.
All the Fatima men, Kerosene men, tune off one time. Good job there, Bray. Tune off like half a pot of Spain schools.
I think some presentation men in South.
Nah, I don't find like anybody past the lighthouse is taken too personally, you know. Anytime you're from presentation or George's or, you know, Benedict's, them men cool. Let's be cool with it, but from the time you're from Kerosene men shoops it and turning off the radio one time.
Already South contingent have their own little war going
Well,
on,
exactly, yeah.
We're not privy to it, but you know.
And of course, we big up the rest of the Caribbean.
Yeah, man.
So today we welcome Mr. Kyle Maloney of Tech Beach, F1RST Media, of Nous Tech, and now ChefMade.
Yeah, ChefMade. Yeah, we just launched ChefMade at the end of February, and we've been doing pretty well actually. Coincidentally enough, just this morning I wake up to a 2-page spread in the Guardian reviews on our company, and it was quite impressive for me even reading it. I'm like, wow, I didn't even have I have so much that I want to fix and do with it, that I was really I guess humbled by reading such amazing reviews, and as the owner of the company, almost feeling like a sigh of relief that they were the ones that got really, really amazing, a really amazing experience, because, you know, you have that sort of like 10% of people that didn't have as a great experience, and you're trying to tweak to get to that 99% sort of delivery rate.
Right.
So it was.
And that 10% is what will keep you up at night, right?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, you're delivering, and 90% of the people are really happy. But that 10% was like, boy, I need to get this thing tweaked till it's literally like a 99% tending to 100. You know, you'll never be 100, but you want to get as close to it as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, because 99 people could tell you, hey, I love what you're doing. But that one person who emails you, one person who calls you and complains, and one person who goes on Facebook and gives you that 1 out of 5 rating.
Yeah, exactly.
You'd be like, oh gosh, but how to fix that, boy?
Indeed.
As the first rating you usually look at when you're reviewing something as well. Let me find the worst ratings to see what the worst experience was. So, you know, you want to make sure you have as little of those as possible.
Exactly. You know? Yeah. So that's been doing really, really, really well so far. And is one of my most exciting projects to date. Actually, to be honest, like, I'm excited about everything that I'm working on, and I guess that's what I've been blessed to experience from a perspective, that I go after and choose things that really excite me versus being in spaces that I'm not so excited about. So yeah, any day, anything I could be working on, I really have a general excitement about it.
So today, well, you're actually supposed to be joined by your brother Nicolas.
Yeah, right now we're dealing with a little crisis. It was a good crisis to have, actually. We released our new menu, and we had literally like 5 times what we predicted that we would have had.
Wow.
So we predicted that, we thought that it would have gone to a certain peak of just about 300 meals. Yeah, we literally over 1,000 meals. Like, it was crazy.
And you are cooking this where?
Yeah, so our model is that my sister is a chef. And so she designs every single meal. And so she works with our kitchen partner, to produce the meals at scale. And so she goes in with their kitchen staff and basically teaches them how to make the specific meal that we want to be made. And then once that begins being produced, she quality controls to ensure that every meal is produced the way that she envisioned it to be produced.
So if you'll need a quality control analyst, I can come in, just bring a fork and a knife and I'll be there.
But see, I thought you don't want to work for nobody,
I'll take that job. That's
Man say free food, everybody had to live, Gotta eat to live,
Yeah. All right. So when I was doing my prep for this interview, expecting you and Nicolas. Normally what I do when I'm interviewing more than one entrepreneur from the same company or so, I would research them separately and it'd be like it'd be double the work, right? But when I started looking in, it's like, wait, hold on. These guys went to the same secondary school.
Same primary school,
same secondary school, same university, study the same program.
Been living together for the same, for him it'll be 29 years. For me it'll be, the only time I ever live alone was the first 2 years of my life.
Wow. Okay. And you guys actually worked at the same companies, even like when you go to interview, they all go and sit down together. They have to hire two people at once.
Well, that's the next thing. I never even went to interview.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay. So that's what networking or what?
No, I never had a job.
So when you were a consultant for this drinks company?
Yeah, that was on my terms. So it wasn't that they hired me and they had to pay NIS and that was the structure. No, it was always a basis whereby these are the terms of the arrangement and this is what we'll operate with and this is the duration of the time and then that's it,
Okay. So that was by design, like what was the thought process, I guess, growing up, or what was the advice you'd have gotten along the way to be able to now sit and say, I've never worked or I never had a job? Like, how, the average person, when you're growing up, you have to get a job at some point and make some money and then start your life from there. So how did that pan out for you?
Especially after being so well educated.
It's a funny thing too. Just recently, because I was now being recommended for another board within the government, possibly. Can't disclose what it is yet necessarily, but government due diligence and due process is that they must receive a resume from everyone. I went to find my resume. The resume I could find was in 2007 in my communications class in university that I needed to learn how to do a resume.
Wow.
Yeah.
I should have meant to hire you with a resume, same speed.
So the man is following up with me. He's like, Kyle, how long you taking to send this resume? I'm like, boy, if you only know, I had to start this thing from scratch. So my background is this, first off, my dad is an entrepreneur and he's had multiple businesses in his life. And I am the firstborn of 5. And in that way, my father really nurtured me throughout my entire life. And in nurturing me, he trained my brother and I to have a strong codependency on each other. And this sort of stemmed from lack of relationship he had with his brother, who was not too much in distance in age with him. His brother has a sort of very strong competitiveness with him that turned out pretty negative, and he didn't want that for us. And so he really drove that sort of bond between us from early on. Like, we used to dress alike, we used to force us to do every single thing together. Right? And then that led on to my 3 other sisters, and so we have a very, very strong family bond as a result.
Up until 2 minutes ago when you told me that you're 2 years older than Nicolas, I thought you guys might have been non-identical twins.
No. Yeah, we're 2 years apart, but in reality, in life experiences, we're the same age. Yeah, and so my dad drove that, and so he's had multiple businesses in his time, and so he's always driven the mindset of finding a need and fulfilling it in some way. And his speciality has always been trade and within the last decade or two, construction, but it's always been trade. And so he drove that in us. He's like always with the mindset of find something to sell. All right. With that sort of mind frame in primary school, I was selling back in the days, it was like Lisa Frank color pencils and stickers and them kind of things was real trendy.
Sales and stuff.
Yeah, bro. I used to leave school. I used to go to Blackman's private school in Maraval and go up by the drugstore, and you're not allowed to, so I had to sneak out. So I sneaking out and going up by the drugstore after school, buying a bunch of Lisa Frank gear, because the girls was real on that kind of stickers and thing gear, right? So I used to go up there. My parents used to give me like $10 or $20 a day or something like that. Something in between there, right? And I used to not buy food to go and buy Lisa Frank stickers and what you call it, them folders and things like this, put your paper in and thing, buy wherever I could buy, come back in school and resell it to these kids. Right?
So you would resell it at a profit after you get the original product walking distance.
Exactly.
And they would pay.
Exactly. They're taking their lunch money and paying me for these stickers and these color pencils and these pens and these things I buy it, you know? So I going up there and as a little boy buying all these gaily looking things. I coming back with unicorn and colorful unicorn and all kind of things these girls is like, because these girls are the ones that get on the most hype for it. And obviously, well, as a little boy, attracting the girls a little bit, you know?
So I was wondering.
It took a while to get to that point. Yeah,
right. Yeah. Yeah. So from that point, man, like from that point on, like it was just like always figuring out what the market needs and how can I solve that. And then secondary school, it was a similar space. But not as aggressively, because there's Rail trying to lock us down. Cakeman couldn't even survive in his school. You know, I remember Cakeman. Exactly, right? Rail shutting down entrepreneurship in CIC, unfortunately.
Break my wallet several days in a row.
Right? So I was a little bit more conservative within CIC. But then when I got to university, it was at the point of when, Facebook and Twitter was now starting. And that was like, we are now pending to like a new sort of online boom from that perspective. And in my second semester of university, together with my brother and two other friends, we founded this company called Eagle Trade. So the logo for our university that I went to is an eagle. So name of the university is Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. And so the logo is an eagle, right? And so we've called the company Eagle Trade. So Eagle because of the university and Trade because of what we facilitated people to do. And so what we realized is that specifically focus first on books is that if your semester is finished and you finish with a book, to go sell your brand new book back to the bookstore, they're going to buy it at a significantly reduced rate, right? But if you sell it back to a student, you could sell it back more to them, yes. But still they could buy it still less than the bookstore. So
you sell it at 80% of the cost rather than 50%.
Exactly. And for the student, they still gain it less than if they go to the bookstore.
Right.
So we began facilitating a trade network that would allow students to buy and sell the books between each other every single semester. Because our university is ridiculously expensive as well too now. And so,
I mean, you're studying aerospace engineering.
Right. Yeah. No, but aside from the degree in itself, our university is known to be pretty expensive. And not so much necessarily from just doing a degree, but there's a track called aeronautical science, which pilots do, right? And it requires pilots to do two things, get a degree and get flight hours. And so their end year spend on tuition would literally be twice a normal spend. So they end up spending something like 70,000 US a year in tuition, right? And pilots made up a large chunk of our student populace, as you can imagine. And so understanding those things, they tried to not be too stringent on other things that would cause university life to be expensive.
And that's where you came in.
Right, yeah, exactly, yeah.
The research is like, okay.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So understanding market need, people trying to find ways to save money or spend less, and it's tough for them to be there in the first place. Something like this definitely thrived. So our university population was pretty small. We only had a 5,000 campus. And so it made it easy for us to quickly be viral before virality was a thing in that sense. So it made it easy for us to be viral by literally being in, the major stopping points of students and telling them about what our platform was about. And it made sense. It filled a specific need. And so students began not only selling books, but they sell their skateboards and they sell their bikes and notices for rooms. So it was like it ended up being like a mini Craigslist just for our university. And so from that, our university was the center point, like a major revenue generator for a lot of the businesses within our city. And so we began taking advertising dollars from these businesses. So
wow, as students.
Yeah. So we generated about 2,000 to 3,000 US a month. And we didn't really have any real costs. So that was just money in our pocket.
Can I put you on the spot though?
Yeah.
Did you pay taxes or were you under the table?
No, of course. So that's the next thing too.
Feds watching.
Yeah.
Because I know students, like, international students at least not supposed to.
Right. So
just
our two partners were two Americans, who interestingly enough were studying aviation business management. So for them, this was like a school project in itself in practical terms, like a lab, but in real life. and labs are supposed to be a mirror of real life. So these guys were doing this for real life. And so we met them at this club called the Collegiate Entrepreneurship Club. And even though we were studying engineering, we were really, really focused on business and trying to like figure out like how to start businesses and how to fill needs from that perspective. So that's where we met these guys. They actually led the corporate secretary type work. So registration in the company, filing the taxes, filing the annual returns, and assigning to us what we call the equivalent of a social security number, which is an ITIN number, some sort of American tax sort of thing that was specific to us because we weren't
8 pen something.
Yeah, exactly, right. Yeah, you know it, right? And that's assigned to us as we were not Americans and not necessarily legal to work. And so we did everything by the book such that I'm not gonna end up rich Miami. And you don't know there's already on railroad in Miami. So
but you see right there, you see how the mindset is, right? You leverage resources to make it happen. When I was in school, trainees were like, well, we can't work. We just, we have 20 hours a week. So we just work on campus and that's it. We ask mommy and daddy for money. And these guys beat the system in essence. And so that you're seeing the difference in the mindset automatically. I like that.
Yeah. Almost similar to what you did in terms of your cooking and your meals and stuff.
Pay taxes.
Never mind. Okay, so did that business survive your graduation?
No. So upon leaving, we started. Well, actually, upon coming to the close of the time there, started doing a lot of introspection and realizing like we actually weren't passionate necessarily about like serving college students, because that's a lot of what our mantra was now. We're here for you, build this thing for you, students, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, when we leave here, like,
deuces.
Yeah, deuces, like, I didn't really want to be tied to here too much, and so once we left, there wasn't like a air to take over the business processes and the relationships. And so.
Because your business partners were in your year group as well?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that was that. And so with that mind frame, we decided, and all throughout university, I had my two other friends that I went CIC with as well. One guy that went to UE and then he went to London School of Economics. And then my other friend that went to University of Cambridge. And so all throughout, we were in contact and they began their own services in London as well. A similar kind of vibe. And with that sort of mind frame that the four of us had, we took that and instead of going to get jobs, we came back home to begin building companies.
Right, and that is how we got to First.
Actually, that's how we got to Novus.
Oh, Novus was before First?
Yeah, First is actually second.
First was second, yeah.
And First was only second because, First was actually first in ideation, but in execution it was second.
Okay.
All right.
So what is Novus about? Novus.
Yeah, so when we came back home, we had grown accustomed to utilizing websites for a lot of different things. Like, you reach home after a few years being away, you're a little bit disoriented about where something's at. Some changes happen or whatever. So you want a new barber, you have a car now, you want certain things fixed. You want to find where the new shops are, where you get different things. And for everything, when you was in the States, you had like an application that could help you find things. So back then it was Yelp or even Yellow Pages, But in Trinidad, we just really didn't have an application that allowed us to find these businesses in any sort of good manner. And even when you find them, like, how do you know what is good? So it's a very like trial and error kind of process. So with that is what drove First. But we didn't have a name for it. And so we was like, we need like a better Yellow Pages, we need a better version of that. And in beginning to do research around what it would take to build something like this, we realized that it would be pretty costly. And so we then began trying to figure out, okay, we need a cash cow. What is going to be our first business that's not going to take up too much energy from us, but could generate some good cash flow for us such that we continue to invest in this first thing. And the four of us spent one entire summer doing a lot of research in terms of plausible business models for this market. We took a real sort of engineering research approach to it. Four of us having engineering backgrounds, we literally began outlining top trending industries globally. And then we did a matrix of understanding the applicability of it within this region. And so we scored it And then from scoring it, we said, how are we uniquely capable to execute within these industries? And we scored that. And then we came out with 4 different industries that we were thinking that we wanted to get into. And yeah, it was a very sort of like nerd-like approach to it.
I love how you engineers always talk about this systematic approach. You know, I come up with ideas in the shower.
Wow.
Yeah. So we did that and we came out with 4 industries. And one of the industries was the renewables, energy efficiency, sustainability industry. And interestingly enough, my uncle, my mother's brother, was now getting into that space as well. And so, I guess we happened to have the interests matching at the same time. And he doesn't live here. He lives in the US. And so he wanted to begin getting in that space within the Caribbean, specifically starting in Trinidad. And we began having conversations around the space and what we think the company could be and where we could go. And boom, we started with that in 2010. And then 2011, we began pursuing hard and we got our first contract from Republic Bank in 2011. And we did it at no cost to them. My uncle fronted most of the cash. The approach that we took was that we front the cash for the first one to prove. And then once we prove it, we're going to do all the rest of your buildings.
Okay, so you funded your proof of concept stage.
Yeah, exactly, right? And so Novus is a company that focuses on making buildings more sustainable and energy efficient. And so what that means in simple terms is that we reduce clients' energy bill. Or as they say in Trinidad, we cut down your light bill, right?
You know, I'm using some LED lights upstairs.
Yeah.
The cabin studios.
Good.
Novus.
Good.
You purchased from Novus?
No.
Actually, I purchased them from Davis Eco Life. Big up Irvin Davis, episode 8.
All right, yeah, Novus doesn't focus on residential by any means. Novus focuses all entirely on commercial. Yeah, because it gives us immediate scale. You know, the size of projects are just bigger, like automatically, right? He now buy 6 bulbs here? How much bulbs I need to sell to make any real money, right? Yeah. And on top of that, like these LEDs, and so the lifetime warranty on these things is meant to be longer. Right. All right. And so when you're not replacing that for 3 to 5 years, when next time making money from you, I had to come here and bust your bulbs to make some more money.
Plus, even gave me a deal. I gave him some rum.
All right. Yeah. So we began there at Republic Bank, and then once we did that proof of concept, boom, we automatically began negotiation for the rest of their buildings. And so our next contract in 2012 was with 13 of their buildings across 4 of their territories. And that was our first major project then one time. It was quite significant in terms of revenue. And that's when I think we made the official serious jump from being students trying to figure out a transition to now setting up and running our full-fledged business.
So there was no hardcore marketing strategy there, or was it just
no.
People came to you just because they needed to reduce their
this was straight B2B. And we were blessed that my uncle did the initial groundwork and got his client. And then we supported in the execution. And then I brought on my 2 friends, Keith and Issa, once we had the agreement for the rest of the buildings at scale. And so we brought them on and we began running and we executed it pretty flawlessly. Upon that, we began getting, I guess, calls from more clients within the banking space and insurance space. And that's just kind of how the domino began to fall.
Quick question though. That was your first experience back in Trinidad. What was your biggest learning experience going through that process and getting the client, getting the check? What was the biggest learning experience at that point that you would kind of hold on to moving forward?
Was the reward for being really prepared and being really bold. At that point in time, the older heads would look at us and say that, boy, well, they don't need to do all that and that and that and that. But I think that is what really differentiated us, in that we overanalyzed, over-prepared, over everything in the initial stages. And it was almost 2 things. It was almost to prove to ourselves that we were ready, and to prove to the client or the potential client that we have thought about this in great detail, such that they feel really comfortable, because especially coming in at that point in time. So this is now 2011, 2012. So this is 6 and 7 years ago, right? At that point in time, I would have been, 7 years ago, I would have been 24, right? So you giving these youngsters, and then my brother would have been 22. All right. So 22 and 24, you giving these youngsters so much money and so much, I guess, control to execute these projects at this scale. Like, it kind of seems absurd. Like, I don't think I'll even give my sister who's 21, projects at the kind of scale that we began getting. And so for us, the lesson that we learned there was the value in being really over prepared and really taking things more seriously than it actually required, looking back at it now. But then I think we were really just trying to prove ourselves in this space. At that point in time, like, that's when we were wearing blazers all the time.
I remember that. I was like, these guys are sharp.
Yeah, right?
So was that part of your branding?
Yeah, no, that was definitely part of it. It was from the perspective that we took ourselves really seriously. And then in turn, the clients took us very seriously. They saw us definitely as very young, sharp entrepreneurs, or at least I'd hope so. And so that's what I'm attributing to some of the success that we would have achieved, right? And to our peers, we would have seemed like absolutely unnecessary. Who are these guys that were in blazers all the time? Like, it's totally unnecessary. But I guess this is what differentiated us. This is what helped us to stand out a bit. This is what caused people to listen to us a bit more. I don't know, whatever it is, right? There's a combination of things. So people initially judge it from your outward appearance before you even begin to speak. And so they begin kind of judging from that point on until they realize what you're saying may be smart. And then they begin actually listening. But we tried to a little bit short circuit the learning curve compared to looking like the average 22 and 24-year-old who kind of just still about kicks you about life and not too sure and, have no real responsibilities yet and that kind of thing. We try and short circuit that a little bit by appearing like we're really, really serious about life, which in reality we were, exactly.
Yeah, what's interesting is that, so I feel like that's partly a Caribbean mindset in a way, because when you look at Silicon Valley and stuff, you see a lot of CEOs who are in their early 20s and mid 20s and everything.
White privilege.
Can't say that.
What's that?
You wanna edit out?
It's like white privilege. Yeah. Snip. Just kidding. You talk your mind.
No, all right, if we being frank about it, think about it. Think about your top tech companies. What do they look like? What do the leaders of these organizations look like? Apple, white man.
Right.
Facebook, white man. Twitter, white man. Tesla, white man. Who are you thinking? Call your big tech companies coming out. Jeff Bezos, Amazon, white man. Call Microsoft, white man. Call. Find them.
Tech Beach.
All right. No, I'm talking about out of Silicon Valley, right? Out of Silicon Valley, right? And so I said that not to devalue their contributions by any means. Like, these are by far, like, literally the pioneers of the technology industry. But Silicon Valley knows it. It is a boys' club. It is a boys' club who now is coming to a realization. I wouldn't even say necessarily a realization. It's now being pressured to, quote unquote, allow more people to play in their club. And that's what it is. And so the boys' club would have stemmed from universities like Stanford, USC, and California, Berkeley, and these sort of universities. These boys come together. They start these companies funded by other successful boys within the industry that all look like each other. And they achieve a certain level of success, and it becomes something that's global. And how the industry has evolved is such that you align a certain type of success with someone that looks like this. It's like profiling automatically. You see a person that does not look like that, probably not going to be successful. You see a person come in looking like that, yes, that's probably going to be success. And it is not always like overt. Is many times a non-realized bias. And well, I would like to think so, but quite frankly, I also believe that in most instances, it is an actualized bias. Yeah, it's a realized bias that is now, the dynamic is now shifting a bit, and the conversations are happening where they're talking about more diversity in the valley and how much diversity does your company have, and these sorts of things, founding black owners and founding diverse owners, founding women, founding LGBT, and those conversations are now happening. But in that space, I think they were just looking for specific people, and it doesn't matter what they come dressed looking like. All that matters is that they look this way.
But there's a school of thought, though, that says that as a black person operating in that space, you always have to go above and beyond in terms of how you look and how you present yourself to even just get up to the minimum basic standard that they might want to expect, right? So, for example, I went to Howard, a black school, and when we interviewed to go on Wall Street and try and get jobs, etc., they had classes on like, okay, I'll call it like black etiquette class for interviewing. You know, you have to be clean shaven. You have to wear your suits sharp all the time, you know, and that was the minimum entry point into even being considered. That was the mindset that they tried to create, right? So the question is, do you think that works for or against you in the Silicon Valley environment? Should you, as a black person there, ensure that you're always sharp, you're always standing out, you're always looking the part, or do you think you should try and blend into the casual, kind of laid back look and feel just to not be different? I don't know. Like, what do you think about that phenomenon?
Okay. So each of these cities have their own sort of culture that go along with it. And so New York is the finance capital and Wall Street and that sort of thing. And so their look and culture is significantly different from the West Coast, California. And I think climate plays a lot to do with it. It's just sunnier and brighter over there. So whatever drives the culture difference is significantly different. So in New York, you really want to be standing out and dressing really well and that sort of thing. In San Francisco and in California, with the exception necessarily of LA, but if you're in the tech space, it may be a little different. People generally dress super, super laid back. Super, super laid back. And when I initially went there, my first trip to San Francisco, in 2016 or 15, yeah, I carried with me my 4 blazers and trying to dress super fresh and went to Zara to buy some more and that kind of thing. And immediately people are like, yo, why are you dressing up so much?
I think you're trying too hard.
Yeah, exactly. You come across immediately as trying too hard. And then one of my friends there's this joke, that they run within themselves is like, the person who dresses the freshest is the person with the smallest pockets in your room.
Wow.
Yeah. And you could see that from the wealthy tech guys that lead the space, you know? Yeah, you're not getting fashion tips from Mark Zuckerberg in his hoodies, right? Yeah.
Steve Jobs in the black, you know, the black outfit, the uniform.
Right, his turtleneck and his dad jeans and his sneakers, you know?
Yeah.
This man is giving his marquee annual presentations, you know, and he's wearing his turtleneck with his dad jeans and his big white sneakers or whatever.
I feel like that's part of his branding too, though. Like, see how you guys at first you had your extremely fresh branding. I guess it's also environmental, like what just kind of lending to your point.
Yeah.
So you guys are in the Caribbean and stuff, you know, we, as Caribbean people, we're a little more flashy, we're a little more
traditional, I think. We're more traditional still. We're still in the suit and tie, for business meetings maybe, or at least we came down from suit and tie to just blazer and a nice shirt maybe,
Yeah.
but we still there. Yeah, I was saying blazers, you see them walking through Port of Spain, you know, sometimes.
And that's the effect of what is it called? Post-colonialism.
Yeah.
Where you're still adhering to a structure that was built not for us and not by us.
Right.
And so we're still adhering to that because at the top, the structures still have a very much semblance of what history has been. And so we don't dress for practical reasons of how we are. We dress to support a system that has been. And in actuality, recently I've been subconsciously pushing back on that grain. I say subconsciously because I didn't say, well, I'm going to start going to my meetings in slacks and sweater. But recently I've had a bunch of meetings back to back and I happen to live in Port of Spain and a lot of my meetings are on Skype. And I kind of dress casually all the time generally these days, because I'm home more and I'm not in an office and I don't have to meet with people within the finance sector as much. These days there's a lot more marketing people and so they're more chill. So I began dressing more chill and coming from that San Francisco space of generally now like buying chill clothes, I kind of just bring that same sort of energy to Trinidad in the way that I dress now these days compared to how I was before. And so now, interestingly enough, what is happening is that I went to a meeting recently and they're like, oh my God, Kyle, you came in like joggers, a sweatshirt and sneakers or whatever. And then somebody else chimes in. He's like, oh yeah, that's the tech guy and that's how they are, you know?
I guess it probably helps that the popularity of the Silicon Valley lifestyle is infiltrating the country now. People knowing more about that lifestyle and that sub-economy up there. So it's just becoming more accepted. We like to take on whatever happens up there.
Exactly. So yeah, and even in Tech Beach, I tried to drive that sort of a little bit of a casualness to the look and feel. Like nobody's in suits for sure. Generally speaking, actually, like the bankers in the room end up coming in suits. But generally we try and be like, the dress code is casual, like you're literally on a beach, like, so we try and drive that. And at the conference itself, in terms of the sessions, this year I wore a joggers t-shirt and a sort of like slack blazer. And my other co-founder,
Your brother?
No, Nicolas, actually not actively involved in Tech Beach.
Okay.
My other co-founder, Kirk Anthony Hamilton. There's actually three of us. And my other co-founder, a guy from London, a Zimbabwean from London, actually. His name is Phineas Mapofu. Yeah.
Were you able to say it so easily the first time?
No. I usually just call him Finn.
Nice. So tell us about Tech Beach, like just for the listeners out there who may not be familiar with it. What is it all about? Why did you decide to embark on that project? How were you able to execute it so seamlessly? Because you were able to get some high profile speakers from companies like Amazon. You got the CEO of Twitter and stuff. So how were you able to put together all of that? So
Tech Beach is born out of an impetus whereby my co-founder, Kirk Anthony from Jamaica, he's been having business focused conferences for the last few years. And he wanted to get into the tech space. And within the tech space, I had, together with my team, we created a name for ourselves within the tech space through our initial company called F1RST. Right? We could get into the story of F1RST in a little bit.
Oh, of course, we're getting into that.
Yeah. So he reached out to me based on me having relationships within the tech space there to help him have this conference. And initially at that point in time when he reached out to me, I was in a very low point, pretty stressed and not really motivated to do anything except figure out what to do now with this transition that's happening with F1RST. And so initially I was like, well, listen, I'll try and help you, whatever, but don't expect too much. I'm in San Francisco now, so I'll begin working on bringing some speakers here from this space. That quickly evolved to me now playing a more significant role than I'd initially fathomed, whereby I really wear this Tech Beach brand on my chest. And the drive for Tech Beach really came out from the experience with F1RST, from the perspective that we want to develop a technology ecosystem in the Caribbean that would enable two things to happen. More innovation happening at scale from the larger companies, like the banks doing a lot more things within the finance space that would make transactions and life a lot easier for us. That doesn't really happen at any kind of rate, for example. And then in tourism, helping to transition tourism into a more digital space and that sort of thing. And then on the startup end of things, give startups more of an environment that would increase the likelihood of their success. And what that would mean from an environmental perspective are things like mentors, potential partners that would allow them to scale, potential alternative forms of investment that don't necessarily just look like the current investment landscape. So investment coming in from companies outside of the Caribbean, because it's not impossible, right. So that is what our drive for Tech Beach is about. It's really about developing this entire ecosystem that startups could come and begin thriving. Right now we just have an ecosystem that we only have sparks of companies trying to do things, but they're never able to achieve that level of scale. And we want to bring that gasoline and such that when there's a spark, you could just throw fire on that and let it blaze.
But I have a question though. It seems to be for me, mentally, it seems to be a difficult prospect to marry the two types of technology, drives that you're focusing on with Tech Beach, right? So on one hand, you have, as you mentioned, the banks, the tourism type industries, the older players whose needs and whose ability to be flexible with technology is completely different from the startup type culture and all that. Do you think it's a wise proposition to try to marry the two in one event? Because I feel like those are two separate events. You can have a whole tech arena specifically for existing snails, let's call them snails, who just don't really, slow to adapt, slow to be able to switch and change into the technology. Yeah. And you can have a whole next space just for the startups. I mean, what was the thinking behind marrying the two and trying to get everybody under one roof?
The thought is simply this. In order for many of these startups to survive, they need clients, right? And these clients are some of these big boys. And these big boys, in turn, need and want innovation. And so the innovation inadvertently does not come internally. What happens a lot of the times internally is hamster on a wheel. They continuously keep running the same playbook all the time and just trying to continuously squeeze as much profit out of the same model, which is why many times you need consultants to come in while you're on a hamster on a wheel to begin looking at your thing from a bird's eye view and whatever, That's similar sort of type of thing with the startups. We want to have the conversation around innovation and have the startups that are innovative be there to have the direct relationship with the businesses that can then buy their service or product,
It's an ecosystem in itself.
Exactly. So the ecosystem is not one without the other. They're all part of the ecosystem. And so our goal with Tech Beach is about bringing all of the pieces of the ecosystem together in one place such that they can have real conversations with each other and have real practical outcomes. And that's the toughest part. Like the tough part is by no means putting together a conference and bringing nice brand names and people or whatever. Like, quite frankly, it's fun for me to do. Like, I love being on a plane and going to meet with people that work at these amazing companies and doing amazing things with their life. Like, that's quite really fun.
Yeah, just kind of map that out for us. How did you be able to get all of these guys to come down to Jamaica to give a talk?
Yeah.
Without charging you a huge bill?
All right. So I can speak for me. Kirk is ridiculously amazing at doing this. Quite frankly, pound for pound, I think he's the best in the region at being able to bring high profile people to the table. He's a writer, and so he has a gift for both writing and speaking. And he has a unique vision for the Caribbean, a narrative that any, I guess, sensible person could believe in. So he's the one that really drove the initial base of relationships. Mine stemmed first from relationships I built with a Trinidadian in a very senior position in AT&T in San Francisco. He was the senior director of big data for AT&T. And upon meeting him through one of my CIC brethren, Mark Moyu, Mark met him at a conference he went to, and Mark was like, "You need to meet my friend Kyle." We met on Skype, and then he's like, "Bro, listen, I'll meet you when I come for Christmas." And then when he came for Christmas, then I went and hung out with him in San Francisco, and he just began infiltrating me into a lot of the networks that you would have had at that senior level. And from there, I took the vision of what we're trying to do and the noble, as they would say, mission of what we're trying to accomplish that goes way beyond us. And it's a law of numbers, like we ended up getting like 30-something people our first time, and we would have spoken to over 100 people. And what people generally bought into is a market that they're generally not in, just giving up a weekend. We're not asking much of people. So the event is on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So, and is coming down to Christmas. So the year winding down for them already. So we utilize some of the things that we had at our advantage. The experience we're bringing them into is an all-inclusive resort. And so the quality that some of these executives will be coming into, they don't need to feel like it's going to be a little offbeat for them. They go into a country that is one of the top country brands in the world. Within the Caribbean, for sure, Jamaica, I believe, is like the number one brand in the Caribbean. And
definitely.
That goes for English and Spanish speaking. Yeah, they have Bob Marley and Usain Bolt, like one of the greatest musicians of all time and the greatest sprinter athlete of all time ever. And then a bunch of people that fall in between that. Because people like Sean Paul and Shaggy, not like chumps,
Yeah.
Right? So those sort of pieces to the puzzle helped significantly, and us being able to articulate it well enough, I guess, helped drive these people to this place that a lot of them would have not been to before, to a conference that they never heard of. And we were able to achieve that.
Great. You're speaking, and I'm thinking like, maybe you may get to this later in the interview in terms of advice and all that, but I'm thinking that for somebody who, went to school in Trinidad, probably reached as far as Barbados for a holiday, the scope of what you're talking about there seems almost out of reach for the average person that might be listening to this now. It's like, so it's clear that the international experience would have planted the seeds that could drive now these kind of moves, right? The confidence, the know-how, the ability to, morph into different beings. So for somebody who's just, in Trinidad, probably reading the internet, the success stories of these big companies wanting to try something, where do they even start to begin to, take those kind of steps that you've been talking about for most of the evening, though? What do you think about that?
I don't know how to articulate giving necessarily practical advice, but some of the things that initially come to my mind are being bold and unafraid of being uncomfortable in situations, and being out of your comfort zone, and being willing to adapt to situations, focusing a lot on understanding social cues and social dynamics such that you're able to quickly build relationships. These are some of the things that I try to be good at. I wouldn't say necessarily I'm the best, but I try to really focus on a lot of those things. And having a strong why. That's the most important thing, quite frankly, having a strong why. Like you could be not so bold, not have great social dynamics or whatever, but have an amazing why, and you'll realize that people will just begin being drawn to you.
Because purpose drives progress, right?
Exactly. And so, as the great Simon Sinek said, start with why. And once you have a really strong why, things begin to align itself, and the multiplier effect begins happening, whereby it's no longer about your drive and impetus anymore. What happens is that people begin adding to it because they can quickly and easily articulate your why. And it's meaningful to them, and it means something to them to be able to articulate it and share it with friends, because the conversation dynamic has now become, hey, we're now working with this company that's trying to drive technology growth in the Caribbean. They have created a platform that brings together some of the best enterprise companies and startups in the region. And these guys are the guys to work with, And so that's the quick, short narrative. We bring best startup companies, best enterprise companies in the region, and we are driving tech within the Caribbean. Generally, people within Silicon Valley at these major companies don't have a direct focus on the Caribbean. One, because they don't have a relationship directly with people that live here and operate here. And two, from a market perspective, the incentive isn't that strong. The market is just really tiny. 6 million English speaking people. Yeah.
Interesting.
So yeah.
Interesting.
Let me put you on the spot again. So with regards to the why, right? It's like a chicken and egg situation, I'm thinking, because is it that looking for an opportunity and seeing a space and then creating your why, creating and then binding to your own why is the approach that you think most people take? Or is it that people should really genuinely have a burning desire from before they even realize that there is an opportunity to find a why or identify a why, their why, and then start to build out the opportunity? Is it opportunity first, then why, or is it why first and then you seek the opportunity? What do you think about that? Sorry to put you on the spot, bro.
No, of course. Why drives the opportunity? You start with why, and then the opportunities begin multiplying in itself. Like, where we are now with Tech Beach, I didn't really think we're gonna be. Like, a lot of the conversations that we're having with some of the big companies and with governments, that necessarily wasn't what I was thinking when I initially started by any means. I was just thinking we'd have this conference, I'd build some relationships, and then I'll use those relationships for some companies that are going to start again. And that's kind of where I was looking with it initially thinking. I wasn't thinking too big and broad and wide with what the possibilities were. But having an initial why, opportunities begin to multiply on itself, and you begin going in directions that you really didn't imagine. So to come back to what my core foundational why is, to be able to even begin seeing these opportunities and choosing what opportunities I go after, my foundational why is simply this. I want to make tomorrow better than yesterday through the use of technology, applications, platforms. And so with that simple why, that cancels out the sort of projects that I get into. It gives a funnel for people to now think of me as the tech guy. And so those sort of projects and opportunities begin coming their way, more so than any other opportunities. And it narrows my focus to begin going deep on a subject matter such that I could begin becoming the best at that subject matter, you know? And so my why was really driven from that thing of, hey, I want to use tech to make life better for people, first in the Caribbean and anywhere in the world.
Okay, so that said, if we look out 1 year, 3 year, 5 years, maybe even 10 years, what can we expect to envision as a landscape for not only Tech Beach, but for tech in the Caribbean as a whole?
Wow. This is quote that Bill Gates famously said something like this. People overestimate what they could achieve in 1 year, but vastly underestimate what they could achieve in 5. And generally, I don't like to give 5-year projections on my own company per se. I like to just kind of think of things within 1 to 2 year time spans, because as you gain more information, things can drastically change, especially within the technology space. Yeah, Facebook could change the algorithm on you, and then, you know, Facebook is no longer the key thing you begin advertising on, or you had to adjust in some way, you know, like, so no, tech changes so quickly and is very, very unpredictable in that sense. You don't really want to project too long. But from a 5-year perspective, I think, within the Caribbean, we definitely want to see a greater uptake of more technology. That's just the goal. The goal is greater uptake across as many sectors as is possible. Within health, we want health tech to begin coming on stream, such that simple things like patient moving from doctor to doctor is an easy transfer of their data, such that you don't go to a doctor with frustration that, boy, you had to start back the same process and the doctor putting you back through the same process the last doctor put you through, because this doctor now had to see the results. And, you know, like simple, like things like that to in the transportation industry, a greater uptake of more ride sharing and transportation services, to the tourism industry, that people having a way greater, smoother experience within the tourism industry. Man, like even our carnival industry, like, yeah, we have so much advancements we can make within Carnival through the utilization of tech.
So what's the kickback then? What would you say is the kickback? Why are we so slow to adopt in the Caribbean and Trinidad in particular?
Some of the kickbacks are, one, experience at scale. In the US, what typically happens is that a guy would work for one of these major tech startups and be able to quickly understand their processes at scale, and then go out and be able to replicate that for themselves in some form or fashion, right? We have a leading tech company that people could go train, gain experience at, and then replicate it at scale, you know? Great oil companies, and so people could go Oman and Dubai and wherever else, and, you know, and we shipping our petroleum engineers all over the world, and we're some of the best petroleum engineers in the world and chemical engineers and that sort of thing. Because why? You have industry that supported them to grow and develop, but that isn't here. And so we need to sort of artificially inseminate and create these things such that it would allow these new companies to begin gaining short-circuit experience needed to build things at that kind of scale.
But on that note, though, I was having a discussion with someone, and the idea that Trinidad and Tobago is a predominantly import, markup, and resell type of market, or buy a franchise. Like most of the successful businesses do that, right? Yeah. You have a few manufacturers, a few creators locally. Do you think it's the same with tech, though, in that we just destined to be an importer of technology as opposed to a manufacturer of technology?
I'd hope not, because the reality is that ideas aren't like bottled up in some sort of lab in Silicon Valley. Like, things can be born and created almost anywhere. It is just the lack of ecosystem and infrastructure to support the growth. And so once we focus on creating and building this ecosystem, things that you could not initially fathom will begin being birthed out of it. we give so much credence and focus to Silicon Valley, but a lot of countries around the world are beginning to produce major tech winners. There's this company that everybody utilizes, Spotify. Where's Spotify from?
Is that Japan or something?
No, Spotify is a Swedish company. Right? A lot of major tech is coming out of new places that aren't Silicon Valley, San Francisco. And why is that happening is because people are realizing that these are the infrastructural pieces that you need. These are the incentives that you need to create. And you'll begin seeing things coming out from it. And so literally almost every major serious government is talking about having their own Silicon Valley of Dubai, Silicon Valley of South America, and, you know, because they begin understanding what the infrastructural pieces are and you begin seeing innovation happening.
But just to push the point a little bit though, like, if you look at the diversification efforts we've been trying to have in Trinidad for the last few years, the idea is similar, right? They want us to move away from oil and gas and create new industries that would help the country to sustain itself moving forward. And tech is like one of the few, or IT, they call it technology services.
Yeah.
It's so overshadowed by the others. One, tourism and you know, the arts, etc. Mm-hmm. And then two, we generally just miles behind even in as compared to tourism and the drive. So to me, it seems as we're a long way off and from, we have one or two success stories popping up, like you guys would be one, you know, and a couple of companies that may be doing interesting things. But, you know, it seems as though it's a long way off. I don't know. Maybe it's a pessimistic outlook, but, I don't know. It just seems as though we have a lot of work to do. The track record isn't too positive from the other types of diversification efforts.
Yeah. So from a Trinidad perspective, honestly, sometimes it feels a bit demotivating because there's a lot more talk than action. And that happens across every industry that is not, I guess, I don't know, like beneficial to the government per se, that not serving somebody else's interests. Yep. You know, so while they say in tongue, focus on diversification efforts, in reality, a lot of the opportunities to seriously diversify and own or become serious players in spaces just come in and blowing past us. We have a very, very low cost of energy here. Why aren't we a manufacturer of renewables? Why aren't we a major solar manufacturer? Why aren't we leading or pushing research and development in the renewable spaces to become a leader in that space? We have some of the lowest cost of energy in the Western Hemisphere. So why aren't we capitalizing and utilizing that to become a serious manufacturer in that space? You know, like, we jokey. You have as well now the rise of cryptocurrencies, which as well needs a significant amount of energy to produce Bitcoin and these cryptocurrencies. Why isn't the government investing and taking the lead on becoming a leader in these spaces? You know, like, we talk one talk, but jokey in reality. With that being said, I live in here. You know, like, why supposed to be? I'm just supposed to be pessimistic and just believe that we'll always be a shithole country. Well, Trump says so.
No, I think you're doing the right thing though. I think what I admire about you guys is that you guys always take your ideas and you take action. You're not just a couch debater. You're not just going on Facebook and the social media and just complaining in a bunch of very intellectually and very well-written paragraphs. You are building your businesses. You're scaling it very quickly.
Yeah.
And you're implementing, executing. And I think that's what people should focus on doing instead of just saying, oh gosh, why the government do this? It's like my friend Hutch said in episode 2, you have no excuse. Just start, just do it.
What I like to is it's a unselfish effort to it. The Tech Beach enterprise, for example, that is a genuine desire to see the tech space develop. Like, it's not about me making profit, which, you know, most people try to start. I mean, yes, there is a profit element, but because of the dearth of tech type business and opportunity, you need something like that. You know, you need the international people, the same people we spoke about earlier who never left Trinidad. Imagine now they have opportunity to go just as, you know, a stone's throw away, and they're seeing people from Twitter and you know, that's a big deal for them. It's like, that could be the spark that we spoke about earlier, right? So yeah. I appreciate that effort as well, man.
So the thing is, we grew up in a different industry compared to our parents, a different time compared to our parents. I'll state the obvious, but what I mean to say from that is that we have the ability to act way more globally. from the onset and take on a lot more complex, bigger problems to serve bigger markets than our parents did within their time. In their time, literally, it was about having a shop that serves just your local marketplace and just being another player within your local space. And the few entrepreneurs who were blessed with a vision to think globally, like the Anthony Sapgas of the world, you know, who, well, he bought Carib, but, you know, push it to be a global brand, and the SM Jalils of the world and that sort of thing in terms of manufacturing. These are the leaders. They're like very, very minuscule in that space. So generally, our parents and our families were just thinking, just serving this local need. We come from the perspective that, listen, the globe is our stage. Like, I could literally be talking to somebody from any part of the planet now, like, and it happens in seconds. Like it's not even seconds. Like, it's automatic. I say, yo, somebody in China receives it immediately, you know, like that was unfathomable in our parents' time. So now operating within that space, it is actually a form of enlightened self-interest, because you know you'll benefit from it, but it is smarter to begin thinking of, how do I begin serving the needs of as many people as possible, millions of people as possible, versus serving this small need. And when you begin thinking of, how can I serve so many people? How can I solve a problem for so many people? Your whole mind shift is a massive, massive mind shift. You begin realizing, like, whoa, this problem is way too big just for me. So you want to talk about it as much as possible. Our parents' time, they don't want to talk about their ideas because they're afraid somebody else is going to take it.
Exactly.
Our time, I want to share my ideas as much as possible because I realize, brother, it's in me alone could do this thing.
Everybody needs to win.
Exactly, right? Right? So I need as many players to help me as possible. I want your feedback and your feedback, and we have a very much more open sort of perspective to it, because the size of the problem that we're going after is so much bigger than what our parents initially would have been fathoming. And so that sort of mind frame then takes us to begin coming from the perspective of trying to serve a lot of different people. And the end result of serving a lot of people is what? Is that, yes, fine, you will eventually be paid. You'll be paid, and you'll be paid well, and you serve 1 million people and you charge them $1, you know, a month. You're making $1 million a month times 12, you're making $12 million, you know, like, so try and serve as many people as possible and making a positive impact, as you said, of course. You don't want to be a Pablo. And the results will come. So that's the approach I take. The approach I take is, forget me. All right? Because that's the next thing too. If you're just thinking about yourself, you're always going to be struggling to just take care of yourself. And that's a mind frame that my father gave me. My father was like, listen, if you want to live on, you think living on $10,000 is enough for you, aim to make $100,000. Such that $10,000 that you wanted for yourself becomes insignificant. You know? Because now at that $100,000, you studying about paying staff and doing other things and growing to the next $200,000, growing to $1 million. That's what you begin thinking about. But if you studying to just get a job and make a 10,000 a month or 20,000 or 30,000, you're just going to spend your whole life struggling to try to get to that, because that's your whole goal, you know? So in order to solve the goal of $30,000 a month you want to make, aim to make $300,000 a month. Once you're making that 300,000, that 30,000 is like a drop in the bucket. It becomes 10%. Yeah.
Interesting. All right. So I want to go back. I mean, this is really good. But I want to go back to first.
Yeah.
Right? Because I feel like that was a big inflection point in your entrepreneurial journey. So just sum up first. How was it building that business? Because that business was fast rising. You guys were wearing new fancy suits. You had a beautiful website. You had a nice app launch and everything. But what went wrong?
Okay. All right. So we launched first the brand and what we're about in 2013. And as I said before, we really focused on being like almost like over prepared for everything. So in launching a brand, we launched a brand positioning it to say, we launched a really nice video. We say, hey, this is the problem that we're solving and this is how we're looking to do it. And in launching that video, that in itself gained quite a bit of virality. And in doing that, we launched this website to generate additional hype and buzz for the platform to say coming soon. And only when 100,000 people sign up to the site, we'll launch, which in itself was interesting. And so we saw people sharing it a lot more just on that sort of hype positioning we created. Yeah. and we went way past that 100,000 by the time we were ready to launch. And in that period of time whereby we were now having like a mini launch event for the brand, we went to a couple different companies to help sponsor the event, Digicel being one of them in 2013. We went to them for sponsorship, and then they agreed, and went to them maybe like about 2 months before the event. And then just within a month of the event, they came back and asked to invest in our company, which was not something that we thought would have happened before we even launched. And so that was crazy. So we didn't even initially think that the initial call was like real. We were like, I'm not even sure what you mean by this. Like,
you got Digicel to invest in your company. How did that feel?
It was a phenomenal feeling. Both a phenomenal feeling and almost like walking in steps you outline for yourself. Because to be honest, in January of that year, we outlined in our plan that we are going to begin looking for investment from the two telecoms in the region. Those were our two leaders of who we wanted to get investment from, because it would have been a strategic investment from their perspective and from our perspective, help us scale quickly, and an application that drives data usage for them would be something that's good, And so that was in our plan. We just didn't expect the plan to happen literally to run up on us. We expected to have to go after it, but it ran up on us. We went to them for sponsorship. They say, we want to invest. Wow. And that drive came directly from their chairman. He was asking their board on their monthly board meeting, hey, who are some of the top technology companies in each of your countries? And board members were saying things like Facebook and YouTube. And he's like, no. Tell me who are some of the homegrown technology companies. And nobody had anything to say except for Sasha Thompson, who at that time was the COO of Digicel in Trinidad. She happened to have our video, and she played our video for the board and for the chairman, Dennis O'Brien, and they liked it. And he's like, go find that company, do some research on them, and if they're good, invest in them. So fast forward 1 year later, the investment finally came through. We got US for 25% of the company, which is not something that is widely known, but it's something that we generally share in conversation. And we began running. We began running really, really quickly.
So from that point, you guys became millionaires. Well, TT millionaires.
That happened before with Novas.
Take that, KV.
Sorry. Podcast will.
Put in place. Put in your place.
But the funny thing though is that because we were so driven by growing our companies, we actually didn't focus on paying ourselves a lot. So personally, we didn't actually pay ourselves a lot, but we were focused on growing companies. So the companies that we were all shareholders of had a significant value. But my personal accounts wasn't really saying anything too much, quite frankly, which wasn't necessarily the best decision looking back at it. But you live and you learn. So that investment occurred and we began running. The goal really was we were able to raise this amount of cash before launch, as they say, pre-revenue. How much more we'll be able to raise post-revenue at some really aggressive targets in terms of number of users on the platform, targets in terms of number of businesses on the platform, and how much revenue we're able to generate. And so within our first year, we were able to generate over 800,000 US in revenue. That was actually achieved within our first 10 months. And with that, we're now looking to significantly expand in a couple of ways. One, raise new capital to push our next level of growth, because that level of growth came with burning through quite a significant amount of cash. And then begin growing through our partner Digicel. And so they preloaded our application on all of their devices, etc. And unfortunately, at that same point in time where we're now pushing for a whole other level of growth, the person in Digicel who was leading our investment, he went to a board meeting, or he was supposed to make it a board meeting, and he got a stroke.
Oh, shucks.
When he went in for testing the stroke, they realized he not only had a stroke, but he had cancer as well, which was crazy. And so we haven't spoken to him in actuality since that point, which was like February of 2015. And without him being a main point person to really like drive growth and the partnership, the relationship from that point on, just kind of like went into no man's land. Nobody owned it because within the digital framework, they run a very tight ship. And so if it's not assigned to you, nobody really has the bandwidth to take on more.
But that's odd though, because they already had exposure of US.
Yeah.
So somebody had to step in and monitor that.
Yeah. That eventually came at a much later point in time. At that point in time, a lot of the things that we needed to happen to sustain our growth, not even growth, just to sustain the company that were planned with them didn't happen. And now that took us on a whole different trajectory down. And we had to send home like 45 staff and really figure out how do we begin running this business on a much reduced sort of, on a much reduced cash, which wasn't something we forecasted for, wasn't something we was even remotely ready for. And at that point in time, then we needed to figure out, what are we going to do with this company? And that is the story there.
So what did you decide to do? Because I know you, before we started recording, you told me you pivoted somehow.
So we hit our lowest low in July of 2015 when we sent home effectively like everybody. And within that period of time, July 2015 to like December, I think the team, the four of us and whoever was left on our team, which was just like 2 people, we were just like mentally drained, mentally tired, From the 4 of us perspective, we did an engineering degree, and so from school straight home, it was just like work. So from 2007 to 2015 for us, it was just like hardcore, like work and trying to build these things, these dreams that we've been running after. And we now hit a low point, and FIRST wasn't isolated. The impact of FIRST affected the company Novus, which was on its own successful trajectory. So both of them were hit at the same time because we couldn't give the energy that we needed to give to Novus. And we spent that 6 months really being introspective and reflecting and really trying to figure out where we go next. And that's when my boy approached me about Tech Beach. At that point in time, we began pivoting FIRST to be more of a digital marketing agency, taking a couple of the clients that we had relationships with. They were saying like, hey, you guys did such a good job marketing FIRST online. Like, this is not our space, it's not our strength. Can you begin doing this for us? And that was the inflection point there of now beginning to deliver these online marketing services to a few clients, leading clients that we had, and then begin building on that. And so now we're in a much more comfortable and aggressive position with FIRST in its like current state. We changed up a lot with the company.
So you guys did a TED talk on, yeah, you remember, you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah, of course.
You guys did a TED talk on harnessing the power of fair. This is just after you launched Novus and FIRST as well.
Yeah.
Leading on that and going back to your experience after FIRST, after what had happened with the digital money kind of drying up and then you guys having to essentially restructure the whole business. Mm-hmm. Or would you say you harness the power of fair to go ahead and go into a new tech business, a new tech endeavor?
Well, the phase with FIRST was real practical. I had my rent to pay. I had like old salaries to pay. All these staff like being really a mixture of extremely pissed to super sad and everything in between. I had company related expenses, like we had a whole lot, like literally like, in a business sense, like, yeah, you pieced out a fraud there for sure. He's a big man now. He's a big man now, right?
And you're like 26, 27 at the time, right?
Exactly, right? Yeah, he's a big man now. And so all these people that older than you that you hired and you was taking care of their families essentially, So nobody really want to hear your sad story of what happened with you. At the end of the day, in practical terms, people want to take care of their family and what they have in front of them. And so I'm not by any means mad at anybody who took it far left or didn't take it at all and everything else in between. I can understand what they're dealing with, practical terms. And yeah, that was the reality. And that's some serious, at that point in time, for me, it wasn't even fair at that point in time because we'd been through a bit, even coming into this, coming into it with first. This was just like the heaviest. At that point in time, it was more like just being tired and seeing all these things and understanding that you can't stop. You can't stop. You need to push, you need to drive, you need to continue pushing on, and you need to figure these things out as quickly as possible and begin making progress from where you were.
But from a lessons learned point of view, right? I mean, we understand that due to unforeseeable circumstances, the digital relationship would have had some strain. But from an operational perspective, like, you know, what would you say was the biggest maybe lesson or mistake you guys made along the way that would have also kind of led towards the eventual decline? Because the money drying up, I know that would be a big challenge, but maybe from a more day-to-day actual inside the company perspective, you know, are you willing to share any lessons that you would have picked up along the way there?
Generally share these things like one-on-one conversations with people or one to a few. Now down on this show here, I feel like it's going to be to millions of people.
Trillions.
Podcast will.
Yeah. No, man, we made so many mistakes. It's crazy. If I were to start with somebody big, with the biggest one is that we didn't hedge ourselves from the perspective that everything really centered around growing with this one company, and they were our one major mentor and one investor and one partner and one client. Like, it was just so centered around them that it really, it was just all your red flags looking at it as an investor coming in or any smart business person, you know. So hedging your risk from that perspective is one. Two, operationally in terms of scaling team and staff and that sort of thing. Yeah, that was horrible. That was horrible.
It was too quick. Your scale.
That was horrible. That was horrible.
Choices of hire were bad, or what way?
I wouldn't say the choices of hire were bad. Like, I think we had a really, really good team. Like, I liked everyone in the team, and I think everyone was really, really smart in their own ways, in their own specific skill sets. From our sales team to the marketing team to the guys who were working on product development to human resource. Like, yeah, we had a real good team of people, but for the most part, they just weren't equipped for the digital space. You know, like, there isn't like nobody came from like a Google or a Facebook or anything like that. So everybody came from like a Guardian or, you know, like,
or Massey,
you know, like, so, or agency in some way. So they didn't really have the experience equipped to help us innovate and really like get, like grow from there. And we ourselves didn't have that experience. We now figuring things out. So no, the team was as best as it could have been. But the amount of the team was significant. And I guess from that perspective, we kind of scaled up quickly because we felt as though we're going after like a really big market and going after the Caribbean, and we needed strong support home here locally, and we're just super aggressive in every single thing and not being conservative really in our forecasts at all. And so I think the greatest lesson is a certain level of conservatism, which definitely put into ChefMade. The cost to start ChefMade was like miles less. The marketing results that we're seeing from it is cost a lot less than what we would have spent there. The team structure is one that, a lot lower. Like, we just learned so much from it. We set up mentors as well that spread different skill sets. So we have one really good mentor that helped us, especially in the starting stages, that worked at a similar company in San Francisco. And she helped us structure the whole company in the beginning and understand the business model coming out. And then we had other mentors from marketing perspective that work at Facebook and Twitter and that sort of thing. And like, we leverage a lot of the relationships we would have built to really get this product that we have here now that is good, but miles away from where we want it to be. But the cost structure is significantly different to what we had initially started with first.
So in a way, the investment might have done more harm than good, you know, in terms of how you approach the company, getting it off the ground, getting it ramped up. I know on one hand, you have to be aggressive. You're trying to go big. You're trying to think global. But I guess, you know, maybe lack of experience in terms of you have this chunk of money, let's just go hard, and, you know, it might have actually backfired, you think, or?
Yeah, so I think it was not only even from our end as well. I think from the investor end, them being inexperienced in investing in these types of companies. They're really centered on driving revenue, literally day one of your Audi gates, and conversation is, all right, so you have this money and how much money you making now, how much money you making now, how much money you making now. And no matter really how much we try and drive our product development conversation and how much we're investing in developing product to enable us to scale at some later point in time, that really wasn't too exciting for them.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah.
What was the revenue model for first though? I mean,
it was advertising model. It was real simple. People paid a monthly subscription of like relatively small fees between $500 and I think the highest was like $2,000. I think we even had like a little less than 500 too. And they would get certain types of advertising that we would have garnered. So first was increased search ranking on the platform based on your keywords. Next as well, because we had a real large email database, they would also get the benefits of being a part of our weekly email cycle and that sort of thing. And that was the model then. So they paid this sort of subscription fee to reach a certain audience that was interested in our content. And yeah, that's how we generated revenue.
All right. So all that said, all that noted, for people out there who want to start their own businesses, but they kind of being handicapped or being restricted by fear, right? Fear of disappointment, fear of failure, this general fear of the unknown. Yeah. How do we all get past that? How do we make fear our friend, like you said in your TED talk, and just go ahead and be bold and take that action? How do we look at fear?
Yeah. So how do we look at fear? So I guess like, from my perspective, I think the bottom line is just start. Just start. I think that should be your mantra, just start. If you have that as your mantra, you'll begin realizing that you're going to be miles away from where you were within 3 months, within 6 months, within a year. And once you begin on a path, you're going to yeah, the world is real funny. Life is real funny. From the perspective that you could never connect the dots looking forward, and that's a Steve Jobs quote, but things only make sense looking back. And so it's real important to just begin, because once you begin, opportunities begin funneling and coming your way that you could have never forecasted would have come. And you sitting down there and seeing all the obstacles, but you're not seeing all the opportunities because you can't. The reality is that you can't see all the opportunities because these opportunities are not going to come from the ways that you think that they're going to come, And so you just need to continuously focus on making progress. So once you just start, then your next mantra is just make progress. All right. And so you're going to stumble all the time. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to do things that are just not ideal. Just make progress. Just make progress. That's your next mantra once you start.
No, I'm no scientist, right? But I do look at a lot of Google, right?
He's a Google scientist.
But what I learned from somebody's speech, somebody who's good in science, his speech, is that fear and excitement, your body responds to fear and excitement in a similar way. So it's about how your brain perceives it, right? So just like you said, there's so many obstacles. There could be so many opportunities. So if you think of it in that way, I think that way you kind of get more excitement. You start to feel that more fire to actually get started and implement, like both of you guys have done.
Yeah, indeed. You could use fear productively for sure. You could use fear to drive you to productive outcomes from the perspective that you're utilizing that same excitement, that same energy to not have you be crippled and have inaction, but have you drive yourself to action and to make things happen. So now I don't see it so much as fear anymore from my perspective. I see it now more so as I said in the talk, productive paranoia, whereby I'm never fully comfortable and I'm always uncomfortable when things seem too easy or too comfortable. Like something is not going right. And so I'm constantly looking for ways that we can be better and ways that we are lapsing that we're not seeing. One thing that I'm not worried about is knowing the things that we're not good at. What I'm most worried about and most fearful of is not knowing the things that we're not good at.
Well said. I think that's a good place to wrap, honestly.
One wise words.
Yeah, that I want to wrap right there. This episode was really long, but I don't care. I think it was worth every minute. Podcast world, it is worth every minute. I think you would agree.
How long we talk? Whoa, all right. Felt like a 15-20.
Felt like a 15-20, right?
Some hard editing work to do, boy.
I might just leave it just like this.
Everything seems to be...
sound great.
Yeah. I'm good.
All right. So, Kyle, thanks a lot for coming through and sharing your story, sharing your lessons, sharing your advice. Is there anything we haven't covered that you want to leave us with?
I don't necessarily want to leave you with anything that I haven't already said, quite frankly. I feel like I talk a ton load. So I think the last words, as you said there, was, for me, some of the most impactful. The last conversation on productive paranoia and just starting and making progress. These are the things that I consistently live by. Trying to have a strong bias to action, always focusing on progress, trying to always figure out the things that I don't know. And not just the things that I know that I don't know, because that's easier because you can consistently work on that. Trying to always figure out the things that I actively don't know. So it's always really important to keep yourself open to feedback and genuinely being curious about life. So I think we covered some of my strongest mantras in the end there.
Great. So where can we find you?
Yeah, you can send my WhatsApp. I don't mind. 356-7777.
Whoa.
Yeah, I pretty open with those things. Like, if you need support or help in some way, some project they're working on, generally speaking, I'm more than willing to lend a hand or point in a direction. Or you could add me on Instagram or follow me on Instagram, Kyle Maloney _F1. The F1 stands for first, F1RST. Or add me on LinkedIn or Facebook with my name. That's good to go.
All right, great. Podcast world, there you have it. If you are not subscribed to Caribbean Power Lunch, you need to get onto caribbeanpowerlunch.com/subscribe. Listen to us in your favorite podcast app. Thank you for listening. Osei, thank you very much for coming through again, my brother.
Thanks for the invite, boy. This was a great session.
We need to have a quick bite, We need to have a 20-minute discussion sometime to discuss your new projects, just to kind of catch up with you and how things are going with you and stuff.
No problem.
I think people will be very interested in that. All right. Podcast World, Cabin Studios. We are out.